Okay, good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a lovely summer. I'm going to continue to admit people, so I apologize if that is disruptive. Um, Thank you all for being here tonight. We do have a packed agenda. I am going to copy the agenda and just put it in the chat. It's the same as I had posted. Um, We are doing a little out of order because one of our guest speakers is en route traveling, and so I have to wait until she is available. But we can go ahead and get started. So this is a ANC 5803 single member district meeting for September 2022. For those of you who I may not have met, my name is Emily Singer-Lucio. I am your ANC commissioner. I welcome you all to the meeting, and if I have not met you, I hope you'll at some point in time reach out so I can meet you. Hopefully all of you received this through our single member district email list. If you are not on our email list, please email me so I can get you on there. I'm also going to put in the chat my email address so you have it. It's pretty easy. It's 5803@anc.dc.gov is my email address. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm trying to manage multiple screens here. Okay. So the Kennedy School Development was the first thing on our agenda. I know one of the members of the Kennedy School team is here, Will, but we're going to wait because Lila's not here. So she has to be pushed to the end towards the end of the meeting. So we will do that. I don't see, are either Evan or Jason on from EYA? One of them is supposed to be on. I don't see either of them on. I did just email them.
Did you say
Okay.
Christopher?
I'm sorry, what?
Did you say Christopher?
No.
No. Okay. I was trying to help
Oh.
you look through the list
No,
of names.
Evan or Jason. Yeah, I didn't admit either one of them. So I did send them an email and a text message. So hopefully one of them will be joining soon. Give me 1 second. Okay, unfortunately, I cannot reach them. So hopefully they will be joining soon. So that brings us to Mundo Verde. And I know Kristen and Principal Jen are on, so welcome. Um, um, so let me start off by saying we're talking about two different items here. So I want to do one and then the other if we can. As we all know, when Mundo Verde moved into the neighborhood, we met with them to talk about their traffic plan, and knowing full well that they were going to be expanding as the years went on, we had a little pause in that with COVID. So I want us to get sort of back on track so that we are aware of things. I know that a couple of the neighbors have been very good about keeping an eye out on some of the concerns with issues. And, we had a couple hiccups the first week of school. We've had a couple more hiccups. Some of the issues that neighbors continually complain about are about parents double parking in the wrong spaces, driving through the alleys, trying to cut through, blocking other traffic, just and not following the traffic pattern. So, I want to make clear that, this is a partnership, right, between Mundo Verde and the community. So we're really looking to be partners and working together, and having constant communication, I think, is extremely helpful. Knowing who the right people are to reach out to when things happen. So with that, Kristen and Jen, do you mind talking a little bit about this year's traffic plan? What's been communicated to the parents? Maybe trying to address some of the concerns you are aware of, and then giving the community a chance to ask questions about that, and then we'll move on to the other topic if we can.
Absolutely. We have a few slides that I'm happy to share my screen, and then Jen will take the current operations questions.
Yep, I will.
Hello, everyone. Really happy to be here. It's been a while, and I just want to recognize what the pandemic did to our ability to engage community in a more continuous basis, but really happy to be here, committed to being engaged with members of this community, and really feeling like this is our community and wanting to make sure that we're here in every way that makes sense for you.
And I agree with Kristen 100%. Hello, everyone. My name is Jennifer Kwaku. At school, I'm known as Principal Jen. I'm happy to be joining this ANC meeting for the first time, and I'm sure it won't be the last. So thank you for having us. Kristen, were you going to share, or did you want me to share?
No, I'll share screen and you can start chatting. Yep.
Okay, so thank you. As Emily brought up a bit, we are entering week 4. Very excited about that. And something that we know is a big concern is traffic and our parents' behaviors with their cars. And so there are a few things that we have done proactively. We have, before the first day of school we circulated maps to clearly designate where you should be driving, where you shouldn't be driving, the direction of our car line that we have employed to support a more continuous flow of cars, the alleys that we would like you to stay away from parking. You shouldn't be parking there at all. And also the designated parking areas. And also, as Emily stated, we have been keeping in constant communication with different community members. One of our neighbors is on right now. And that has been a really supportive source of information, as sometimes you all can see things that we can't see. So we appreciate that. So after having some conversations with some neighbors, we changed up the process a little bit to be responsive and to support better traffic, especially in the mornings. We put more staff on the ground. We have more sites where we have staff, for example, the alley that's right in front of the school, to ensure that people are not, or people stop, because they were stopped parking there, which can back up traffic. We also have a staff member on the beginning of the car line, right as you turn into the staff parking area, to ensure people who are not supposed to be parking there aren't taking time to pull in, pull out. We know every time there's a parent pulling out of the parking space, that also backs up traffic as well. So after we did a walk of the arrival routine, we saw some really key areas where we could provide more coverage, and we put staff there. Another great support that DC has given us is the crossing guard. Unfortunately, earlier this week, there were a couple of days where the crossing guard was not present. We're not too sure why, and we didn't have communication about that beforehand, so we weren't able to staff that spot. However, the past few days, they have been back at their crossing spot station in the morning and the afternoon to support safe pedestrian crossing and a better flow of traffic as well.
Jen, I'm sorry, where is the spot for the crossing guard?
The spot for the crossing guard is at Varnum and 8th.
Great, thank you. Because
With
last year,
Mhm.
2 years ago, or whenever it was you opened, we had also requested a traffic guard at 12th and Varnum. Is there one there as well, or just 8th?
Not that I know of. No, we before we were assigned the crossing guard, I know we partnered with DC to do a safety evaluation, and that is something that came from that evaluation. It was the crossing guard at that location. I was not here at that time. My assumption, and Kristen can jump in, is that if they didn't assign a crossing guard at 12th and Varnum, whenever they did the safety assessment, they might not have saw that as a high need area. So that's what we were assigned, and that's why she's always there.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Another way that our staff is supporting better parking habits is actually to have sometimes a staff member, when we have the capacity, in the Washington Jesuit School parking lot, or the person who's in the alley will monitor that lot as well. So yes, at the beginning of the school year, within the first 2 weeks, we did have some of our parents parking in that lot, especially before their school started. However, after a few conversations with some parents, we've been able to positively redirect that behavior and direct them to the parking spaces they can use. So that we've seen a decrease in parents using that lot as well. On top of consistent messaging in our weekly bulletins we send to our parents, we also extended the car line time. So the intent was to end the car line right at 8:30. That's when school starts, right? So this is it. Your kid needs to be inside school. But we noticed that wasn't very supportive of traffic flow on Varnum. So we extended it an extra 10 minutes, and that's been helpful as well. And then I think the most important thing here is building a relationship with neighbors, because as I said, we can't see everything, and having support from neighbors like Stephen, who's closer and can see things from a different angle, is really supportive of giving us feedback and us being able to change some things, make some adjustments, so we can all be good stewards of our community. So that's probably the most important thing. I predict, as we are consistent with our enforcement and parents have more practice, that the traffic flow will not be as big of an issue as it is now, as we are in just week 4. However, we will keep the communication lines open so we can be responsive to your needs. As you all said, this is a community that we're sharing, and we all want to be good stewards of the community.
Principal Jen, thank you. I appreciate that. I do have a couple questions. One of the things, when you all first opened, we had some issues with parents from Skrilly, which is next door to you. Has that been an issue, or has that problem sort of resolved itself now that people are more familiar with the traffic?
I'm not familiar with any of those issues.
Okay.
If you want to be more specific about that.
Yeah, they used to, prior to your arrival, they were used to driving down your behind your school the wrong way and going straight into their lot. And then when you guys came, they had to readjust their expectations and go around, right? But that was one of the issues. Then there was other issues where their parents would sometimes get caught in your school drop-off line.
Okay.
It would hold them up. So I would strongly encourage you, Principal Jen, to reach out to them if you haven't already. They're a little hard to get a hold of, so if you have trouble, let me know. But reach out to the nuns over there. Make sure that they know who you are, because if there are problems, they will come to somebody.
I appreciate that. At this time, I can say I have not noticed anyone driving the wrong way. It is a one-way street, that section we use for the car line. And of course, they use the other portion to drive out as well. But I haven't seen anyone this year do that. So it might have become a routine now, but I will definitely keep that in mind. Thank you for that suggestion.
You're welcome. Okay, my other question is now that additional sidewalk is there across the street, right? That's there, right? They put that in, right?
Which street, across which street? Which one?
Varnum? Steve, did they put that other sidewalk in, or Kristen, did they put that sidewalk in across?
I don't know that sidewalk's in.
They were supposed to have been working on it.
Yeah, I know it was.
Yes, the
supposed to happen.
sidewalk.
Is it
Yes,
in?
the sidewalk is in.
Okay. All right. Okay. I thought I saw them working on it. Thank you, Steve. So Principal Jen, across the street from you, on that short segment between the alley and the other side of 8th Street, across from you, that was not a sidewalk before, and we got requested that to be a sidewalk. And prior to that being put in, we had numerous problems with parents just, or students just walking across the middle of the street wherever they wanted. And we were trying to, on those first few days when the school was open, making sure that parents were walking all the way up to the crosswalk to cross, right? And so I'm hoping that with your traffic safety person there, they are monitoring that, and your other people there, they're trying to make sure that they actually cross at the intersections and not just jet out of their cars and into traffic.
No, they're not doing that, Emily. There is a permanent jaywalking crossing over of parents and teachers, parents and students at the 901 Varnum Street from the south side to the north side, going into the gate where the entrance to the school is. The entrance to the school is not on the west side where the crossing guard is. The entrance is on the east side. And so that's where the students and the parents cross without a crosswalk, jaywalking across Varnum Street to get there. But they have an agent, they have their own crossing guard there directing traffic and trying to help some of those pedestrians cross the street and not going to the crosswalk. I don't think they will ever go to the 8th Street crosswalk if they're coming from the 10th Street direction, because it means going further past the side of the building where they want to get to.
Yeah,
That's just the way it is.
I can see that. Principal Jen, is there anything you all can do to help address that with parents? I mean, I know it's a little out of the way, but one of the biggest concerns from the community was parents not, well, a couple of things, right? We want to teach the children, right, that the appropriate thing is to not cross in the middle of the street, right? That's an easy lesson to want to teach children from day one, right? Because none of us should be crossing in the middle of the street, particularly children. And two, helping parents understand the importance of that, and, working with the community, because there's a lot of traffic in that area, and we want to make sure that those kids are getting to school safely.
I will take that to my executive leadership and we'll discuss it there. Thank you.
Do you have concerns about them crossing? I mean, are you not concerned about that as an issue?
Oh, I wouldn't say I'm not concerned about it. I think for us to have a systematic response to really affect change, it'd have to be a conversation with my executive leadership team. We haven't discussed that. So I just want to make sure I give all of us a chance to put our heads together and see what is the best way to find that solution.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Just to let you know, that's been an ongoing conversation with the administration of the school ever since it opened. And, we were pretty much told initially that that would be taken care of. So I would hope that that would continue.
Emily, can you repeat what that is in
Sure.
terms of what?
So parents are getting out of they're parking along Varnum Street, getting out of their cars, getting their children out of their cars and crossing in the middle of the street.
Okay.
And as opposed to walking up or down, right? They could either walk to 10th Street and
Mhm.
cross at the crosswalk, or they could walk to 8th Street and
And
cross
now
at the
there's a
crosswalk.
sidewalk that they can use, right?
Correct. Now there's a sidewalk that they can use, correct. And walking to the stop sign and the crosswalk. And, and I understand, people are lazy, right? They don't want to walk the extra 25 feet to have to go into the back of the building, right? So that's the concern about, kids walking, crossing the middle of the street and
Got it.
parents crossing them. So,
Okay. So
yeah.
agree, we just need to make sure we understand, we look into hearing the problem from you tonight in a really specific sense, making sure that we've got the right supports in place to make it happen.
Yeah.
Don't disagree with the intent of what you're describing, but want to make sure that we have the right supports in place, and we'll work with Jen.
Yeah, I mean, I think
As a member of the executive team, I'll work with Jen to make sure that we can figure out how to support it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Kristen. I think part of it's communicating with the parents, right, about the importance of safety, importance of, teaching children the appropriate ways to cross the street, right? I mean, we want to be good role models, right? So I think that that's a big part of it. Anne, you had a question.
I don't really have a question, Emily. I just want to add some detail to this discussion. So part of the reason y'all are seeing a drop off in parents parking randomly on Barnum Street or on 8th Street or in the Washington Jesuit parking lot is because many of them have come to the 900 block of Upshur Street and chosen to park there and walk their kids up the street. And because of the way the houses are situated in the 900 block and the way the folks who live here park our cars, most of the parking that those parents are able to take advantage of, which is their absolute right, it's street parking, it's not reserved, it's available for anybody, is between the alley and the corner of 10th and Upshur. And the behavior that we are seeing is people park their cars, they jaywalk across Upshur Street, and anywhere between 60 and 80% of those parents are walking their kids up the alley between Upshur Street and Barnum Street. This poses a danger for two reasons. One of those reasons is because, quite frankly, people are continuing to use the alley to travel southbound between Barnum and Taylor Street. The other reason it poses a danger is because with the installation of the speed humps in the 1100 block of Upshur Street, the behavior that we are seeing for cars traveling westbound from on 12th Street who are using Upshur as a cut through to Taylor is they are slowing down for those speed humps and completely ignoring the stop sign at the corner of 10th and Upshur. They're barely even slowing down if they pay any attention to it at all. What that is doing is that is causing cars to come through that space between the corner of 10th and Upshur and the alley at an increased rate of speed. Now, Emily, you and I and Commissioner Costello have discussed this with Ms. Jong Olson at DDOT via email, and DDOT's position is that section of the 900 block of Upshur Street is too short for a speed hump. I have not had a chance to email the three of you back with another suggestion, but I feel like a viable way to fix this problem is to put in one of those stop line speed humps that is similar to what is at the corner of Sargent Road and Emerson Street, because that will at least force people to slow down before they cross into that half block and make that turn into the alley.
Where
And can you tell us a little bit about what that is, just for those of us who don't know that intersection?
And I'm
So
sorry,
I
Ann,
apologize,
I'm sorry, real quick.
Emily.
Ann, could you repeat real quick where that intersection is? You wanted that?
at the corner of 10th and Upshur going
Okay.
westbound on Upshur Street.
Yep, okay.
Yeah. Kristen, Sargent Road and Emerson Street Northeast is if you going in either direction, either coming into DC or going outbound toward Maryland, there are very small speed humps right at the stop line. And the reason those were actually put in is because someone was killed in the crosswalk.
So, and they won't be doing those anymore. I can tell you for a fact. They won't ever do those again. As a matter of fact, if they haven't already, they're in the process of being removed.
Well, then we have a speed
We
problem.
need something else.
Yeah, we need something else because we have a speed problem in that very short half block. And the way parents from Mundo Verde are behaving, it's, I understand. I mean, I work in UX design. We have this phrase, it's called pave the cow paths. You put the sidewalks where people are already walking. We need to recognize that people are going to be jaywalking across that half block and they're going to be using the alley because they don't want to walk up 10th Street and make the left turn on Barnum because it's that extra 25 or 30 feet they have to walk their kid up Barnum Street.
And any specifics you can email about where people are crossing, what sidewalks they're using or not using. It's just super helpful as we think about how to educate our community on what we should be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it might be better to send you some photos, so I will be
Sure.
happy to do that separately.
Jen,
Yeah, and feel free,
and-
Ann, to CC me on any emails.
Absolutely.
Jen,
I will say
anything
that
you
photos
very-
and video are helpful.
Yeah. I just want to give Principal Jen a chance to weigh in if there's anything that that has become overtaken by events.
No, as I said before, this is all good information. It's really helpful to hear from the community. My approach is to take the time to take in the information, go back to my team, create a plan, communicate it, and then be able to support the plan effectively for effective implementation. So thank you for this information. I
You're
also
up.
know that we had you gave us a certain amount of time. Emily, I feel like we're over time, but
Yeah, we are. I do want to ask you one other question. And then I do want to actually talk about the development too.
okay.
Jen and Kristen, I've talked to both of you and I wanted just to talk about it publicly in the meeting. I've received a couple complaints about overusage of the playground that's at the EYA development. That playground is not a city playground. It is it will be turned over to the homeowners association of that development upon completion of the project. And so, a couple neighbors have expressed concerns because they've gone at times when they felt it was overrun by Mundo Verde kids and there wasn't room for their kids to play. And so I know Jen, you and I have talked about this by email, but I wanted to make sure that there is, some consideration of the, residents in the neighborhood and other people who want to play there, and making sure that there's sort of limitations on how often and how many kids are there at one time.
Thank you. And I don't think we got into this amount of detail on the thread in any way. It'd be good for everyone to hear it. So yeah, as per the conversation with EYA, Michigan Park Community Playground is a public playground in the city. And we are making sure that we have a staggered usage 3 times a day, no more than 45 minutes a day for those 3 times, to ensure that we're not the only ones, that the neighborhood doesn't feel that it's our playground. We are a city school with limited space on site. So for our students, on-site space is not sufficient. We are blessed to have close proximity to both Turkey Thicket, Michigan Park, and we were even more excited to be able to use Michigan Park, as that is a safer transit for our students instead of having to cross Taylor. And so here's details on this slide. So as I said, 3 times a day, 45 minutes a session. And we have, this year, we're able to hire a recess coordinator. And before students use the park, they are out there checking the equipment and checking the grounds to ensure safety. Now, not only is that a benefit for our students, it's a benefit for anyone that uses the park. And we'll continue to use that. We'll continue to have that position in the foreseeable future as well. And again, the thing that supports us is with making sure that our usage is not impeding anyone else is communication. I had a lovely conversation with another neighbor I met today, Miss Linda, and she expressed to me the concern with students, how they're transitioning kind of noisily. And I'm glad that she told me that. And now I can go back to my teachers and remind them and lean into our value of empathy, even when we're traveling to the park. So that relationship and that conversation, that communication is important. But everyone's not using the park at the same time. It is staggered 3 times a day.
And how many students?
45 sessions.
How many students at a time, Principal Jen?
No more than 80.
80 students?
No more than 80.
At a time?
Yes. So again, I have been in conversations with the developer, and they've given, again, us the permission.
But Jen, it's not just the developer, and I appreciate that, but you really need to take into consideration the needs of the community as well, because that park will no longer be the responsibility of the developer comes soon. And, I'm not comfortable with the response in terms of, I don't feel as though the needs of the community are being taken into consideration. I mean, we're not saying you can't use the park, but there's also Turkey Thicket, and, 45 minutes, that's an hour and a half, each day for 80 kids. That's a lot of time. And so what I'm asking for is there a way to sort of balance that with, some alternating Turkey Thicket as well?
So we do. So that's what I described that in the email, and I'll say it again. So everyone doesn't use Michigan Park Community Playground. we do also still use turkey thicket as well. So it is not overwhelmed the entire day. But as I said, as with the other issue brought up with the parking and the traffic, I'll be happy to take this offline with my team and, look at it even more. Again, the support of having a recess coordinator is also supporting the community. It's not just about us. And
Well, let me
so I
offer a
will
suggestion.
definitely continue this conversation with the executive leadership for some more things that we can do.
Well, let me offer a suggestion that if you
Sure.
could take this back to your executive leadership, I'd appreciate it. There are only 5 days in the school week. And so if 3 of them are at EYA or Michigan Park Playground and 2 of them are at Turkey Thicket, but Turkey Thicket is a bigger playground. So would it be possible to reverse that and have it be 3 days at Turkey Thicket and 2 days at Michigan Park?
Right now we have every grade does both. But are you saying all in one day? Like you're saying have a few days of a week where there's no Mundo Verde usage? That would make those days even more concentrated. So then we get back to if your concern is the amount of kids a day or you get back to that concern.
Yeah, I mean, it's both. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'm trying to find out other ways to sort of solve the problem where there can be, or maybe the other option is that maybe you can share with me the times that that you plan to have to use that, and I can share that with the community, and so the community doesn't use the playground then. But I hate to do that because they're entitled to be there too, and right now they're telling me they don't feel comfortable being there.
Yeah, they are entitled to be there, but be happy to share the schedule so people can choose. But again, we use Turkey Thicket. It is bigger, but there's been other families there. We've been at Michigan Park. There've been other families there as well. Usually it's not as much because it's during the school day, but there've been other kids there. And if more transparency with when we're using it will help, I'll be happy to send that to you tonight.
Okay. All right. That would be appreciated. Okay.
No problem.
And I would appreciate, continuing to have conversations about this because, as I said, this is a concern, and I want our neighbors to feel comfortable going there as well, and that would be good. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All right. So, Lorenz, you have a question?
Yeah. So I walked by that playground and I saw, I guess it was Mundo Verde. And you're saying 80 kids. I mean, I saw all these kids bunched on the apparatus there. It just didn't seem reasonable. I don't know that particular park can accommodate 80 kids at a time. And that was just the one time I walked by there. I saw them, but just about every apparatus was like overloaded with kids. So just from that type observation, I think that's an issue. That of safety, because when you have kids, condensing around all this equipment, I just don't think it's safe. And I just didn't, I said, what's going on here? So I'm glad we're having this conversation because I think you need to realize that, yes, I've walked by Turkey Thicket with what I assume is a Mundo Verde school children there, and they do need the space. That I being, somewhat of an opponent of the whole development at EYA, but to me, that so-called public benefit, it's okay for a limited number, but I think now it's being overtaxed with your expectation of using it to the degree that you are.
Yeah, and thank you, Lorenz, and Principal Jen. There was a couple comments in the chat. I don't know if you're looking at that, of concerns about that as well, about the number of kids there and another parent feeling uncomfortable being there. So I really think we need to continue to have this discussion. I think we need to continue to work on mutual solutions. I'm not real happy with the way this approach is being approached by Mundo Verde right now. It doesn't seem as though you all are willing to negotiate on this or pull back on this at all, but this is clearly a concern from the community. So I think that we need to continue to have this discussion because this is a smaller playground. Turkey Thicket is much bigger. So I think we need to continue to have that conversation, but that is a good segue into.
Yeah, but Emily, I'm sorry, real quick. I heard
Yeah.
you say it doesn't seem like we're willing to, that's not true. I just want to reiterate. I don't think it's with the limited amount of time that you allotted us. I don't think it's a good idea to promise anything without having a really thoughtful conversation with the operations team and things like that. So
Jen, even in
yes,
the
we are
emails-
happy to continue to make some changes. We are happy to, again, be good stewards of our community. We're sharing this space. I just can't promise anything right now.
Okay,
That's all.
and I appreciate that, but I'm just saying, even in the emails, it did not come across that way, and it was very standoffish in one of the emails you sent me. You know, I was very, you know, I taken aback by one of the emails that you sent me about it. So, you know, I think that we need to continue to have this conversation. You know, I think that the community is the priority in this situation, and we need to, you know, continue to work through this for everybody's benefit if we can.
Really, as we shift gears, I think there's also we are getting conflicting messages. I'll just use that qualifier
Okay.
from the community, and I think there are relative to our use of the playground, and some of that is our parents who live in the community who would like us using the playground, and they are in your district or they're in Colleen's district. But I think there's a and I want to emphasize, we are here, we want to talk with you, and we are committed to working this out. We're not convinced that what we're doing right now is exactly perfect in any way. So I don't want you to hear that what we are doing right now needs to continue. And I also want you to know that we are hearing from other members of the community who fundamentally want us using Michigan Park Community Playground. And it includes an ANC representative and parents in our community who live in the surrounding districts. Again, want to make sure that what we do is not in any way precluding families in the neighborhood from using the playground. That's really, really important. We don't want any family to feel like we are taking over the playground. And we want to work with you to make sure that what we're doing is safe for our students as well as for students in the neighborhood. So I think
Well, I
it's a
appreciate
bit of
that.
like
I
continued
appreciate that,
conversation,
Kristen.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I apologize. I did not mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. I appreciate that. But this
Emily,
is and I
Emily.
appreciate knowing that. You know, I know that this is that, you know, I think the pushback we're getting is from people who aren't parents at Mundo Verde. That's where we're getting the pushback from. Our parents who have younger kids who aren't at Mundo Verde, who want to be there during the day. That's where the pushback is coming from. I can understand it being appreciated by the parents, but it's not so much by some of the people who aren't parents.
Correct. And I like the parents live in the neighborhood. We are a charter school, right? So students come to our campus from all over. And we actually are really excited that a number of Michigan Park and Bloomingdale families are in our school, because we're not in a sort of traditional charter school. Like we are really excited about being more of a neighborhood school. We want to support that approach, and we do have families who are pushing us to use Michigan Park. We have neighborhood families who are pushing us to use Michigan Park because they feel like it's closer, safer, smaller, all of those reasons. So I think we should have.
Well, maybe
I'm committed, and I think Principal Jen is committed to ongoing conversation about how we make sure that we continue to address this issue in a way.
Yeah, I think maybe one of the other things we should consider is, you know, maybe smaller groups. So it's not so packed, and so that it doesn't cut off from people being able to, you know, be there. So I think that's another thing to consider, but we do need to move on. So, you know, one of the questions in the chat was, with the expansion, will Mundo Verde be adding their own playground? So if you can talk about the expansion efforts, because I know that's been on topic of people's mind.
So give me a sense of how much time we have, because I have 5 or 6 slides and I can like
Yeah,
rush
well,
through them, or I can use one slide. I just want to have a sense, Emily, of how much time you think we have.
why don't we take
Tonight
15
versus-
minutes, Kristen?
Okay.
I know we're already way over, but let's take 15 minutes.
Okay. So this slide just gives you a sense of our school. We, our goal, our program requires approximately 600 students to be able to serve our bilingual education program from pre-K to 5th grade. We know the building at 8th Street can fit us this year, right? When you see the slide at 98% occupancy, we know that next year we will no longer fit in the building, and that the following year we won't either. And as you know from the PCSB, from our initial commitment to expanding our program, we knew we needed more space. And in that process, we committed to the community that we would explore multiple options for how we fit, whether it's 4th and 5th grade or pre-K, but basically how we fit approximately 25% of our students in another space. What we did and what we've been doing, but we've been doing it, I think, under the radar. And I think in some ways, I want to apologize because I think but for the pandemic, I would have been engaged in these conversations in a much more intentional way and a much more regular way. So Emily and I have had conversations, but I have not been in front of this ANC for what, at least 2 years, Emily? Help me
Yeah, just to
remember.
make it clear, this isn't the ANC. This is the single member
This
district.
is single, but I haven't been here in
Yep.
this single member district for at least 2 years. And ideally we would have, my commitment and my what I think our school invests in and is committed to is to be a neighbor and to be a part of the community. And I think the pandemic really made it hard because we were so focused on health and safety and quarantines and making sure we just had teachers in the building that we haven't been able to do this work. But we've been doing a lot behind the scenes. So we've been working to say, what space do we require for 600 students? How much play and outside space do we need? We did a robust study of the 8th Street campus to say, what's possible on site? We also determined what can we afford financially. And then we knew in our 2017 charter amendment, we committed to the Michigan Park and the broader Bloomingdale community that we would undertake a robust real estate search, and we did. We looked at properties all the way out New York Avenue, at anything in Ward 5 that could fit us. We looked at multiple properties, and then we seriously considered 5 properties. And we were really, really excited about our preferred option. And some of you have seen our very soft launch of our negotiations with Providence Hospital about the preferred option, which is the property kitty corner to the 8th Street, the 4401 8th Street property.
Kristen, can I just jump in on that real quick?
Yes, absolutely.
So I just want to make sure everyone's aware that Kristen had come to me and shared with me that they were looking to do this, and reached out asking if I had any thoughts or suggestions or ideas. And so my first immediate instinct was to reach out to Providence, knowing that that building, kitty corner to them, was vacant. And so that's what started them down the path of considering that as an option. And one of the things that is great about that option is that, you know, they don't have to bus kids to a separate location. Everybody's, you know, all in the same place, and it's convenient. I know it's going to add other traffic with the expansion, but there were lots of downsides to having two completely separate campuses. And, you know, for the sake of the school and the kids, you know, I thought it was best to try and keep them all together. And it was just, the timing was perfect in terms of the fact that this building was empty, they were looking, and Providence was willing to negotiate with them. So in the end, I think that was a good thing. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Thank you, Emily. And I want to thank Emily, and I want to say to the community how, what an advocate Emily has been for our growth, but not our growth in a way that is problematic to the community, but our growth in a way that leverages space that is immediately accessible, but also addresses the parking, the traffic, the challenge that our growth means for our community. And Emily, I just want to thank you for being, like, you were behind the scenes, you were in front of the scenes, you did amazing work to connect us to Providence. We knew the opportunity that Providence offered, but we did not know in any way how to access. And I imagine that many community members have no idea how to access the decision-making process that is the Providence Hospital process. So I do not think this option would exist, but for Emily having made introductions, and beyond that introductions, serious advocacy on our behalf for why our being at 817 Varnum makes sense, not just for our school, because to everything you've just said, it makes sense for our parents to not have to drop their children off at two different sites. It makes sense for our staff to not have to manage. We will manage two different sites, but to be across the street is really different to be a mile away. But I also think that what we are really, really excited about, and what I think this ANC cares about really deeply, is that we have 3 acres and we are only building we are building a very small building. Hopefully, we don't have the final agreements, but our plan is to build a very small building on what is a property that can absorb a lot. And what that means is that it gives us outdoor space. It gives us outdoor space. That means we will continue to use neighborhood playgrounds, but we won't need them as much as we are today. The conversation that Jen and Emily just engaged in. We will continue to have traffic issues, but we will have much more space in which, and we will plan this campus specifically to address the traffic and parking issues that exist right now, and that will exist with a somewhat larger campus population.
So Kristen, are you, I'm sorry, real quick, are you going to be tearing down the building and building a brand new building?
In all likelihood, we will tear down the building that exists. That's very counter mission, right? Mission for a sustainability school would be keep the building and build it. It's not a great building for schools because it was built to be a dorm. And some of you may know this building very, very well, may know it much better than I do. It has very small rooms and structural elements that if we take out a structural element to create classrooms. It has very small rooms that are dorms that are much smaller than classrooms. If we tear out a structural element that allows the dorms to exist, we are in a position where we may almost require a full rebuild. So we're in that process right now. So to your point, if I had to guess today, we would tear the whole building down. We might keep the foundation. We might keep elements, structural elements, the steel, and reuse them. But right now, the building is very challenging to use as classrooms. The property, however, is really amazing in terms of what it allows for outside space for play, what it allows for addressing traffic and parking. And for those of you who may know our Peachtree campus, our JF Cook campus, our playgrounds and our gardens and our composting and many other things, we make available to our neighborhood. We haven't been able to do that at Calle. We haven't been able to do that on 8th Street. We believe that with the purchase of the Varnum property, there will be forest walks, there will be gardens, there will be compost drop-offs that are available to the neighborhood. And we want to work with you to say, we're not going to not be a school, and we're not going to completely reinvent ourselves to do something different from what we do. But to the point that our garden, our play spaces, our outdoor spaces, our composting spaces are relevant for our neighbors, we want them open for you to be able to access, especially when school's not in session, because our kids aren't there, and children in the neighborhood, some of whom are students and some of whom are not, could use the space.
Kristen, can I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I want to ask a couple questions. So first of all, with this expansion, you're not planning to change the numbers of enrollment at all. They're going to stick to what you had planned, correct?
We're going to stick to that 600 number.
Okay.
We're not going to stick with the 450, which is what fits in the current 8th Street property. But in terms of our enrollment ceiling and our charter amendment, we're going to stick with those numbers. Absolutely.
Okay. Okay. I know we are a long way off from this, but I would hope, actually you probably are going to have to anyway, but that you would be transparent with the community each step of the way as you present the plans, for approval, and then also having a construction plan in place, because construction is obviously disruptive to the community, how that's going to work in terms of, the current traffic situations with the kids and, the hours of that, and, how we're going to manage all that. I'm also assuming that with that construction, you will probably lose that additional parking you have over there during the time of the construction. No, maybe. I don't know, but that's something I think we also need to maybe think about for the long term and have a plan for, because, obviously that parking is helpful. And so we need to figure out where people who use that parking are going to go if they can't use it during the construction. I think all of that is something we need to be thinking about.
So I want to acknowledge that we have wanted to communicate with our community, and I don't mean our parents, I mean our neighbors, Emily, you, Steve, and like our neighbors. We have wanted to communicate much sooner. And it's been really challenging because we were under a non-disclosure agreement. So we were sort of like, well, we have this preferred option. And it sounds like fantasy. It's walking distance. It has enough space for outside play. It has enough space for earth growth. My commitment is that we will continue. We will, now that we are no longer under a non-disclosure agreement, communicate to you what's happening, whether it's construction, whether it's the pace of construction, the timeline for construction, those kinds of things. And Emily, you mentioned a lot of different elements in what you just said, but I feel committed to be able to address the things that you referenced.
Okay.
And I think you and I are on cell phone access, and I'm happy to make sure that after this meeting, we sit down and we say, you know, it's going to be every month, or it's going to be every 2 months, whatever that looks like, so that folks in the community really understand what that looks like.
Okay, that'd be great. I do think we need to move forward. I know there's Anne has a question. Anne, if you can do it real quick, and then I really want to move on.
I'll just put it in the chat, Emily.
Okay, thanks. Kristen, there are a number of questions and comments in the chat. If you can make sure to look at those and make sure that maybe either offline you can send me answers to them, or, you know, somehow address those, that would be great.
Yep, I'm happy to.
Okay, all right.
And I just want to recognize that it's really challenging to be, and we want to be in this community, a part of this community, contributing to the community. And we want our campus, the existing campus and any expansion campus, to be something that the community benefits from. And real estate is one of these really challenging situations where you do have non-disclosure agreements. You have to sort of sort through what that looks like. And we're now at a place where we're no longer under a non-disclosure agreement. So if there are things you really want to see happening, I can't commit that we will be able to address it, or we can address the concern. I can't commit that we can fix the issue, but I do want to hear from you. And we have in our slide deck, and I'll make sure, Emily, that you get it.
Yeah, if you could just send me the whole slide deck, that'd be great.
These are the, it's not, I don't know why it's not working, but I have our, there we go. These, if anyone wants to screenshot these are the emails. If you're looking for concerns about current sort of campus issues, Principal Jen, who you heard from tonight, eloquently is your primary person. Our operations manager is Catherine Rodriguez. She's on the ground. She's managing arrival, dismissal, and many, many other things.
Thanks. That is very helpful, Kristen.
If you have any questions about the expansion conversation, you haven't met her, but I'm really, really excited to have Kat Park as our Chief Operating and Sustainability Officer. She oversees the operations team. And if there's anything on the operations side that you need to escalate, she is available. These are the phone numbers. These are the emails. I will make sure Emily has them. I think Steve Lowe has already met Kat Park and Principal Jen, as well as our CSO, our Chief Schools Officer. So we're around. Kat Park and I are not on campus every day, but we're a really small school system. So we're around and we're paying attention. So if you need something, please be in touch.
Thank you, Kristen. And I know that we're going to continue to talk about this. You know, I mean, obviously, as that happens, you know, we'll need to make some adjustments in terms of the traffic flow. We'll, you know, come back to the community and have that assessed. You know, just continue to do things, continue to monitor the situation and the timeline and all of that. So I think the more we can stay in touch about this, the better. I do want to mention Anne's comment. You know, she did mention the fact that at one point in time, there was a proposal to make that into townhouses. And so I do think having a school there is a bit better than making that into townhouses, where, you know, it's a good purpose. So, all right. Thank you so much to both of you. We do need to move on.
We're here and we're going to be here and we're not going anywhere. And I don't know that we'll be at every single member district meeting, but we're available, and I want you to know that we want to be a member of this community, and we want to be available to you in the ways that make sense for.
Yeah,
what
Kristen,
happened.
Steve had recommended, I know we used to do some regular meetings with you all on campus before the pandemic and before you were open. I think that, having some more community meetings with Mundo Verde is a good idea. So let me know how I can help facilitate that, and we can do that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you, Emily.
And Kristen, when you send me the plans, to everyone who needs to know that, the ANC has a website, all of my meeting notes and all the PowerPoints are on that website. So you can have them all there. So just if you can send me the PowerPoint, that'd be helpful.
We'll do that.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Okay.
Right.
Thank you all for your patience as we work through that. I know we're a bit behind schedule. I know that was an important conversation to have. I did actually hear from EYA, and they had a conflict, so unfortunately they were not able to attend. So I apologize about that. But I do want to move on to Chris Mancini and the 1343 Webster Street special exemption. Chris, are you on?
We are here. Yep.
Hello. Good. Thank you. Before we get into this discussion, can I ask who all on this call lives within the 200 feet of that property?
So I know one of my neighbors. Let me see if he messaged me. I don't know. I did send him the links. Let's see what he said here. So I think Richard might be on. It seems like he is. Richard, are you here? And
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, Richard. And I did reach out to some others. I didn't get responses back, but it seems like Richard's here.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, thank you. So just for everybody's, information. So we're talking about 1343 Webster Street. They're requesting a special exemption to their property. So I'm going to let them talk about that. Do you have slides you want to share, or are you just going to talk through it?
We do have the entire BCA presentation we can present.
Yep.
My name is
Yeah.
CJ Lamora. I'm the architect, homeowner, Chris Mancini.
I just gave you a screen share.
Neighbor
so you should be
Richard
good.
Turner.
Great. Thanks for being here, Richard. Appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks, Richard.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll just jump right into it. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Great. So this is a subject property here on the left, this duplex.
And Richard's the one on the right, actually, adjoining.
And the area that we're talking about for relief is basically the airspace above the existing garage. We've got some more shots of this garage. You come down, it's pretty deep into the ground. The intent for our project is to essentially use the footprint of the garage and build directly above it, and that would require relief from the zoning side yard setbacks. So you can see here, this is the existing property. We've got some roof stuff going on that's also included in our request to BZA. So we'll be removing a portion of the mansard roof, and then essentially building on top of what that existing garage is right there on the side. Skip sides. So the dark green is what we're proposing. We would be bringing up that garage to meet the level of the mansard roof. And then there's also a small portion of relief that we're requesting to allow us to have essentially a roof access staircase with a full height door. And we'll get into that in the internal plans in a second. I'm going to generally skip over the demolition plans. We would be removing the garage roof, reframing that. And then this is our proposed addition. So at the cellar level, the garage would remain, no change. At the ground floor level, we would be adding a dining room adjacent to the kitchen and a small powder room and bay window. And then at the second floor, and I'm going to zoom into this. This is kind of important. We would be taking over this bedroom for a staircase. That staircase would lead to the roof. And we would be, again, extending that garage up to the second floor for, this is a very small, tight bedroom. It's not very functional. So we would be increasing the size of this bedroom, creating circulation space through the old bedroom. And then that staircase is going to take you up to a proposed roof deck. The roof deck, the staircase, and the egress to the roof deck are all matter of right items. What we're asking for relief on the staircase is there's a portion of the top corner of this staircase, and we'll show you an elevation so you can see it, that does not conform to the roof setbacks. And so we have a very small portion of this staircase that does not conform, and that is also included. I'm gonna zoom on here. So you can see here, we are trying to treat that staircase as sort of like a chimney kind of thing. So it comes up above the roof, made out of brick. We'll add additional detail this to figure out exactly, what it is. But we're really only asking for relief in this grayed out triangle. This grayed out triangle is all we're asking for relief, and that triangle occurs on 2 elevations. So it occurs here on the other side. So we're really asking for, a very small portion of that staircase. And then essentially all of this space and all of this space at that side yard addition, again, is our main request, in that, we do not meet the side yard setbacks. The reason that we are asking for relief is because, and adding this spaces, we have a very small side yard. We have no alley access. You can see that in the site plan here. This is one of a few houses on the block with no alley access. And so there is some hardship on the lot to get us to our allowable buildable envelope. And so that is part of why we are then requesting for the relief to the side yard requirement. Additionally, you have letters of approval.
I do.
We have letters of support from the adjacent neighbor to the east that will be most affected by this addition. And so they
As
are,
well as Richard, who's on the line.
and Richard, thank you again for being here, has also provided a letter of support for this project. Richard's property here is on the left in gray. So that's essentially the long and short of it. We'd like to, at this point, open this up to questions, comments, concerns, etc.
Thank you. So one question I have is, how many square feet total are you adding?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. But let's just see. 17 times 10 is about 340 square feet total on this portion. And then that roof access through the staircase is probably like another 10 or 15 square feet.
Okay.
And I'm rounding up, so I think we'll be actually a little bit under what I just.
Okay.
off
And
the top of my head.
what's your timeline right now?
So right now, we're doing the ANC process. We would then be scheduled for a Board of Zoning adjustment
It's in November.
in November.
Do you have a date for that yet?
We do, and I
think it's whatever their November date is. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then for
Well,
us,
that's hold on a second. That's critically important.
yeah,
So
November 2nd.
Okay,
got it.
thank you.
Following the BZ, so we are not going to develop the project any further from an architectural standpoint until we know that we have approval.
Mhm.
So I think after BZA approval, we have, say, a month or two of drawing development that we need to execute. Then we have the permitting process, which is another few months. So we're really sort of looking at, probably late spring for a construction start date.
Okay. So just to let you both know, assuming this passes the community's approval tonight, the next step would be to bring it to the ANC meeting at the end of the month. And then we would obviously draft a letter to BZA, assuming it passes that, stating our approval for you all. So at the moment, I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to first ask if there's anybody. I know there's Richard. If there's any, I'm going to give priority to the people within 200 feet of the property. Are there others on the call from that area? Okay, Richard, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I think that it would really be a beautiful addition to not only Chris's home, but the neighborhood. As we're joined, it'd be a really nice project, I believe.
Great. Okay. And
I don't
Chris,
see
is
it,
that basically the
especially-
sentiment you've gotten from your other neighbors?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is that basically the sentiment you've gotten from your other neighbors?
It is.
Okay. All right. Because one of the things I do want to make sure of is that, have you reached out to every one of your neighbors within the area? Because I don't want somebody to all of a sudden be surprised by this.
Yeah, I've reached out to most of them. I don't know everybody. I've reached out to many folks. I've shown drawings I actually had a hard copy just printed on like 8.5 by 11 that I've shown some folks as I've crossed paths with them. And I walk my dog twice a day. So when I see folks, I talk to them. But I definitely haven't seen everybody around. I don't know their personal schedules, but I've tried to.
Okay. Okay. Anne, you had a question.
Yeah, it's not so much a question as a comment, Emily. I want to encourage the homeowner and his architect to reconsider their roof deck plans to incorporate some sort of sound remediation. The thing that everybody ignores when they put up these roof decks is how far sound travels. And while your immediate neighbors may be okay with your renovation, there could be people as much as a block away who really have no interest in hearing your party. So this is a conversation we had with the apartment buildings that are going up on Taylor Street. They were able to do that. So I'm going to strongly encourage you all to do the same thing.
Okay.
Thank you very much for that feedback.
Okay. Are there any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions. So what I'd like to do now is to take a vote and to see if everyone is in favor of the project. So I'm asking, is everyone all those in favor of the project say aye,
Aye.
or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, Chris, I see your aye. Thank you. Okay, is there anybody opposed? Okay, I do not hear anybody opposed. Okay, so therefore we are going to bring it to the ANC meeting at the end of the month. And if you can also share, can you share your slides with me?
Yes.
So I have a copy of them in advance that I can share with the ANC.
It would be our pleasure to do so.
Thank you. And then we will have you on the agenda. Not intentionally, but just do me a favor. If I forget, please just reach out to me next week to remind me that I need to make sure you guys get a copy of the agenda, that you're on the agenda, and that I give you the Zoom link, because I'd hate to inadvertently leave you off. I think I have a note in my calendar, so that should prompt me, but just want to make sure.
The one follow-up question I have is just, do you have a date for that meeting so I can plug it to my calendar?
I do. It's the last Wednesday. It's September 28th.
Okay.
Perfect.
So yeah, the meeting notice will go out on the 21st. And the meeting is on the 28th.
Fantastic.
Great.
Okay. Thank you all very much. I appreciate your presentation tonight, and I wish you best on your project. It sounds like it's going to be good.
Thank you kindly for your time.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Okay, moving on. I know we're already at 8:15. Update on the Taylor Street developments. Who's on from the Taylor Street developments? I know that.
Hey, this is Matt. Can you guys hear me?
Yep. Hi, Matt. How are you?
I'm good. It was nice to get an update on the school again. Since last year, I hadn't heard anything.
Good. So Matt, would you like to identify, just so people know, which property you're affiliated with, and an update from your perspective?
Yeah, so this is Matt Scorsafava with ERB Properties. We are the owners of 824 Taylor Street LLC and 824 Taylor Street, the property. I think this is our second time in front of this SMD, and we have been in front of the ANC before, and went through the BZA process earlier in the year. And this is just a quick update that we're getting ready to start the demo. I know we sent out an email probably about a month or more ago saying we were getting ready to start, but we had some delays on some other projects. But I do think we're going to be moving dirt there either starting next week or the week after. So, and I did have a meeting with the architect for 828 Upshur, or sorry, not Upshur, 828 Taylor. And although, you know, we don't represent that project or have anything to do with it, he did say that they are still in the permitting process, so they are still at least a few months behind us.
Okay. I know that when we met before, we had talked about trying to coordinate construction and demolition, and it sounds like that's not going to be able to happen.
Yeah, I think I didn't reread the emails we sent earlier this month or last month, but yeah, they're so far behind us on permitting that if you remember, we had a project planned and ready to go in for BZA for a renovation, and then their project popped up, which was completely different, which was a new construction. And then we went back and redesigned our whole project to mirror their design based on some of the comments from the ANC and the SMD. And then, so I think we've already done, you know, we've already done quite a bit to try to work with them. But to wait another, I mean, they're estimating 4 months. It could, with DCRA, it could be 6 months. Would really hinder our project. I
Right.
know they said previously that they didn't want to change their project because of financial reasons. So at this point, we need to move forward. But in saying all that, I think we discussed this earlier on. If we're working together, we can kind of use their site as staging for a little bit while we get our project underway. And then when our project is underway, they can use some of our site for material delivery and things like that.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Other questions from the community?
One other quick note is I know that we shared some of our on-site staff's email addresses and phone numbers with some of the immediate neighbors, Anne included, who I think I heard on the call before. So, you know, if anybody sees anything or needs anything, either myself or those two staff members will be readily available.
Great.
Yep, we got those, Matt. Thank you very much for sharing them.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate the update. Please keep us posted. Anything, if you send me an email, I can always post it to our email list.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks, Matt.
Bye.
Okay, I want to back up and talk to Lila. I see she's on. I see you safely made it to your other destination.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm going to give you sharing privileges.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Yeah.
Yep, so we are going to be talking about the status of the Kennedy School development. As you all know, when we last talked, They had presented a plan to us, and I mentioned that they were going to have to go back to revisit some issues that they were asked to address with the city, and they've done that. I'm going to share with you all that they redesigned the layout of what compared to what they originally proposed to us. So we do really need to look at that and give our feedback on that. Layla, I don't know if you want to start with the school might be the best place to start.
Yes, we'll start with the school. I'll share my screen. We have a quick presentation on the school. I know there weren't as many questions on the school site. We'll go through the redesign and then we'll turn to the townhouse community where, as you mentioned, Commissioner Lucio, we've made some design changes. So to the school site. So again, my name is Lila Batiste. I'm a partner with the law firm of Holland and Knight, and I'm joined by my colleague Cohen on this particular application for the Kennedy School. Also on the call is MJ Morrow, who is the CFO for Catholic Charities, Sequoia Tasker, who's the executive director of the Kennedy School, and then Natalie Ramirez, who's the architect for the project with the firm A Complete Unknown. And so I'm going to, most of you are familiar with the site, and what this Catholic Charities intends to do is bifurcate this property or subdivide the 6.8 acre site. The school will be relocated on 2 acres to the east, and then the western portion will be redeveloped with a residential community. And let me say, I just note here the property is zoned RA1, which is a residential apartment zoning district, and that will be more relevant for the discussion on the townhouse community. So this is just an overview of where the application, the status of the BZA application. We're scheduled to be heard before the Board of Zoning Adjustment on October 19th. We have a pre-hearing statement due in 2 weeks on the 28th. And again, as noted, so we're requesting a special exception for the private school. And then we also have as a second request, special exception to permit 31 compliant spaces, compliant parking spaces, where 37 are required. And we'll have a total of actually 38 spaces on sites, 7 of which will be tandem. Okay, and last, just to note that this is a companion application to the townhome community to the west. They'll be heard by the BZA on the same date, and the Office of Planning and DDOT have evaluated the applications together. Excuse me, understanding how they interrelate to one another. And so with that, I'm going to turn the program or our presentation, sorry, over to MJ.
Hi, thank you, Lila, and so glad to be here. Don't want to spend a whole lot of time on the background of the Kennedy School or Institute. I think most people in the community know we've operated there since 1958. The school serves children aged 6 to 22. The Child Development Center serves children from 6 weeks to age 5. That the school serves those with physical, emotional, or intellectual disabilities. The Child Development Center also serves that population, but is also inclusive and so is open to children typically developing. The key things driving us are our building is old and basically needs to be completely, we need a new building, a new facility. And yet, given the special nature of the population we serve and the unusual requirements, excuse me, relocating to temporary space is not viable for us. And so we have had to structure a deal where we could continue to operate, build a new facility on the site, and then actually sell the rest of the site and have the existing facility demolished. We hope that we are approved at BZA in October and that by spring we are ready of next year, we are ready to begin construction, and that sometime late in 2024, we move into the building, which would then push your obviously townhouse development to 2025. So that is the time frame.
So, Jay, are you done with this slide?
Yeah, I think I'm, yeah.
And then
Next slide. Right, that, it will be a shared facility for the two programs. We will not have adults on the campus any longer. It will only be, well, up till age 22, but we will only have the young children in the school population. We have designed it as accessible. There's no elevator. It's ramped to the second floor so that our children, staff, and others visiting us who have special needs do not need to wait in an elevator and be singled out from their peers, classmates, and others, that everyone uses the same mode of transportation from the lower level to the upper level. I think this sort of outlines all the details. We operate generally, from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. So it's a staggered operation, really no change from the way we have operated historically on the site for many, many years within the community. Next, Lila.
And so we'll turn it over to Natalie, but I think one other thing to note is that the school operates essentially all year round.
Yes, that we basically, because again, the special needs of our population, that we are truly a 12-month operation. We are not closed in the summer. We have special programs ongoing. If I were to talk about the layout from the time we previously presented to this group, it's really just lining up the back driveway of the parking with the change street and alley layout in the townhouse development. So a few months ago, the entrance was more curved because there was not connection to the Providence site. Now that we have a road going through connecting with the back site and alleyways, we have relined the driveway. But other than that, our site really has stayed the same since we presented earlier in the year.
So,
do you want
to? I'm sorry, I'm responding to a question in the chat.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tandem spaces are in the bottom, the sort of west.
Hold on.
Southwest corner. So if you enter, right in there, that section, that's where there would be tandem spaces, and they would basically be staff parking. Because again, our staff comes before and leaves. We are not, I see the question coming up about numbers. We are not proposing to change our enrollment. We have not changed our licenses. We are licensed for up to 75 currently in the Child Development Center. And the school typically operates somewhere between 45 and 50 students. So we do not see a change in the number of people coming. Having been on tonight and listened to the other school, we have parents dropping off for the CDC, very staggered, and we've provided for that on the front turnaround. They come from basically 7 to 9 and pick up from 3 to 6. Very small, not a concentrated number of people coming at any one time. Our school students all arrive on school buses, and we've provided stacking in the back parking for all of the school buses. So we typically have no more than 8 buses, and they are all provided to be on site within the back circle. There's room for all of them, so that we would not be lining up on streets or, staggering out into the neighborhood.
Okay.
We have 45, 46. The parking is based obviously on the zoning requirements. We have that number of staff now, and we have more than enough parking. And so we believe that we will continue to have sufficient parking. We have a number of people who actually live in the neighborhood. We have some who come by public transportation, some who bike. We have a whole, we don't really expect our project to change the school project. We do not expect to change the traffic pattern in the neighborhood, because this is the same school density, staff density that has operated for, the last 60 plus years in the neighborhood.
I know there's a lot of questions coming through the chat, and so I appreciate that. I know this is sort of confusing. I want to try and keep these. I know there's questions that relate to both projects in terms of the construction and some other things. What I'd like to do is wrap up the discussion about the construction of the school. And then I want to move on to the discussion of the townhouses. After we talk through both, I want to try and answer the questions that sort of impact both of those, and then vote on each project separately. Okay, because there are two separate BZA requests. We need to vote on them separately. I do want to mention for people, anybody who has concerns about the construction, Lila, I think it would be helpful in the discussion to reiterate some of the community benefits we talked about from the previous meeting. If you could do that, including some of the, various things to talk about. Anyway, so go ahead and finish your presentation if you could.
MJ, I don't know if there's anything else you want to discuss. I can wrap up the school discussion.
Okay.
Basically, the criteria for approving the private school on the site is what referred to as a special exception. And I've listed the criteria on the screen here. And essentially, in this particular case, the school has existed on the property since 1958. So relocating the school to the east really won't have any of these kind of objectionable or adverse impacts. The school has been and continue to operate as it has been on the property for decades. And so the criteria for the parking spaces, and this is just the general, again, the special exception criteria that the board will use in reviewing the applications. And because the school has been on the site, we don't anticipate any issues. We would comply or meet the special exception criteria. And then as it relates to the relief from the parking requirements, the criteria is listed on the screen. And in this case, the topography impacts how the site can be developed. The tandem parking spaces are sufficient because of how the school operates. We don't, and then finally, we don't have any children here driving to school. So typically the parking requirements for high school contemplate some number of students driving to school at some point, and that won't be the case here because all of the children are bused. And then finally, we have heritage trees on the site, which impacts the amount of developable area. And again, we list these as factors of the site that address specifically the criteria that the BZA will look at. And so that is it in terms of our presentation on the school site. And then we can now turn over, I'm going to end my discussion here and then share the presentation on the townhome community. Bear with me for 1 minute. Okay. Okay. So this is the presentation for the townhouse community. Will Collins will, who is with the Concordia, will describe the proposed development. I'm just again on the screen as a summary of where we are in terms of the zoning approval process. This application will be heard on the same date as the school site, which is October 19th. And I think it's important to note that the approval of the school and the construction of the new school is contingent upon the approval of the townhouse community. And so this is why they're companion applications and going forward at the same time. For this application, we're going to be seeking a special exception approval to permit the townhomes community, both in the RA1 zone, and then also there are special exception criteria for theoretical subdivisions or townhouse communities, more technical issue. And then we also need a variance from the subdivision requirements which requires the private alley serving the homes to be 24 feet wide. And I'm going to show you, we're going to effectively have 24-foot wide alleys. But on paper, they're going to be a little bit narrow. They're going to be narrower than that. And so I'm going to stop here. Will, do you want to go through the proposed development, and then I'll get back to the criteria for evaluating the applications.
Sure. Thank you, Lila. And thanks everybody for taking the time tonight to allow us to come before you again. And I think what we've tried to do is address some of the issues that you raised in our previous BZA meeting and in our previous ANC meeting. And then also we've had a number of modifications that were done at the request of the Office of Planning and the Department of Transportation. So I'm going to try to get through this. I'm battling COVID right now. So I'll just tell you, there might be a little bit of coughing during this, but I apologize, but I'll try to get through this real quick. Changes in density. Previously, we were at 81 units. This project is 80 townhomes. I think it's important, and Lila can speak to this, but this townhome density, we've worked with Catholic Charities on this. This density is nowhere near what the by right underlying multifamily density allowed on this property, but Catholic Charities very much felt that they wanted something that fit within the existing community. And that's how we arrived at a townhome development as opposed to a multifamily development. So this is 80 townhomes now as opposed to 81. Of those 80, 71 homes would be market rate, 9 townhomes would be available for purchase through the city's inclusionary zoning process. Some significant changes in this is that all of the homes now are rear loaded alley homes that have 1- and 2-car garages, as well as tandem spaces on the exterior of the home. So these homes, there are a total of 232 parking spaces for the 80 townhomes, both internal and then outside of the home. So there is significant parking within this project. Couple changes that came up through our discussions with Office of Planning and Department of Transportation was they wanted to see 2 internal streets that had the opportunity for connectivity for the future development of the Providence site. So that is what you see here on these 2 internal streets. In addition to that, there are 6-foot wide sidewalks on both sides of the property that provide for pedestrian connectivity through Providence, as well as the existing community on Buchanan Street. Major changes that from the previous plan we showed you is that we have centered the green area in the middle of the site. And the green area has been increased from approximately 30,000 square feet previously that we showed you to 37,000 square feet. We have, in that increased green space, and replying to some of the suggestions we got from Commissioner Lucio, we have provided for a tot lot in the green space, as well as we have a dog walking area within this green space. This green space is open to our, not only this community, but the neighborhood. We want to make it clear that this green space is to be used, and it is welcome to be used by all neighbors within, that surround our property. So that is probably one of the most significant changes, is the increase in the green space for this development. And then the modification that all of the homes are rear alley. Some of the previous design had some front loaded product. We have no longer have any front loaded product. It is all rear loaded. Let me go through a couple things on the parking. As I said, it's we have 20-foot wide homes, 16-foot wide homes. They are 3-story homes. We are staying within the by right height limits for this zone. We are not asking for any relief on height. In responding to one of the community issues previously, is that we were going to certify that these will be Energy Star certified homes. I know we got that question previously, that, are we going to be building energy efficient homes? Yes, these will be Energy Star certified. And I hope to clarify this. I just saw some rear loaded means the front facades of this home, that garages are accessed on the back side of the homes. So the alley provides access to the garages. So that so from the facades, if you want to look at the facade, Lila, if you could bring that up again, just
Sure.
The picture, you can see, and this facade, those facades you would see throughout, that would be the facades for the homes, where the alley access behind provides for the 2-car or 1-car garages. I think a couple comments that we got last time was making sure that we fit within the community of the existing homes on Buchanan Street. So we went back and modified the plan to match up the setbacks for the homes that front on Buchanan, would have match the setbacks of our neighbors across the street. Not only that, one of the issues came up was grading, and we went back and regraded the site so that the homes that front on Buchanan would also be at the same grades as the homes that are currently across the street on Buchanan. So that is a significant change that we made in terms of the grading plan on this property. Couple other things that we're going to make a commitment to is that we're going to make every effort to the street trees that are currently located on Buchanan. We will make every effort to keep all those trees, with the exceptions of the ones that are at the points of ingress and egress. They're the only ones that really have to go, but all the other street trees will remain. We also, while we know that we have adequate parking for the townhomes and we have guest parking within this community, adequate space for guest parking, we are willing to commit within the homeowners association that none of our residents will be, and we'll put covenants in the HOA, but none of our residents will participate in the residential parking permit program that we're going to work with your community on for parking along Buchanan Street. I think that's important, so that you know that as a community, you're not giving up the parking that you currently have on Buchanan. The other thing I think came up last time was, would we be willing to make a contribution to the city's housing trust fund to offset any potential increase in property taxes that came from higher assessments that might derive from this community? We certainly are willing to do that, and have told the Commissioner Lucio that we'd make a $25,000 contribution to the trust fund to help offset any property tax increases.
Well, it's not to offset, it's to help support the program.
Yes.
it to teach or inform residents about. It'll assist residents on restricted income in offsetting possible increases in property taxes.
Thanks for that, Lila. I appreciate that. Also, I think one of the questions came up last time about during the construction of both the new school as well as the townhomes, would we be willing to put up seismic monitors that we could evaluate any vibration and impact that we had from our construction? We're certainly willing to make that commitment as well, that we would be happy to do that. And that would start immediately with the construction of the school site next spring. I think just to go over schedule again, is that it's because of the nature of the school, is that it's the hope that if the projects are approved by the BZA and supported by the ANC, is that the school would start construction sometime late next spring, and they need approximately an 18-month time frame, with the hope that, you know, after the Christmas break in 2024, the school would be occupied until such time as the students are transferred to the new facility. The residential project would not start. You wouldn't. It would be our hope to start the residential project sometime in the first quarter of 2025. It would commence with the demolition of the existing school. There are 2 heritage trees on the site that we're going to relocate at that time over to the school parcel. And then at that point in time, you'd commence site work on the school site. And then we anticipate it's a 24-month period for construction of the residential community. So I wanted to walk through that time frame. But as I said, I think a lot of the comments that we got last time, I hope the plan addresses it. I know we've made some changes at the request of Office of Planning and the Department of the Transportation. And also, I think Catholic Charities has tried to be very sensitive in terms of the density of this community, to make sure that this community was not developed at a multifamily level. You could develop this site probably to achieve somewhere, 280 units. And that was never the desire of Catholic Charities. It was to try to do something that fits within the current fabric of the community, and that also provides them the income that allows them to pay for a substantial portion of the new school. Hopefully I've addressed.
Well, there's
most of
a
these.
couple of questions in the chat. One, will these townhomes have basements?
Right now, Lila, because the grading, we don't foresee many of them having basements. We will look at later on whether they have English basements. There may be, 10 or 15 that have the opportunity with grades to have English basements. Not all of them do. So we're not at that point yet.
Okay, and then what sound remediations are you building into the roof decks? They're going to be open. Are they open roof deck?
No, we usually do a parapet on
Oh,
those, so that you do have some sound remediation. It is clear. Also, when you're doing roof decks, you want some level of privacy. So certainly can provide more details on roof decks. I do have it. I don't have it available as far as cross sections tonight, but we do parapets so that you do have both noise as well as visual privacy on these roof decks. It's important for the homeowners to have that. I think a couple of things I did miss on the townhomes is that the facades of these, the fronts will all be brick, maybe just a hair of hardy plank, and the sides would be brick and hardy plank, and then the rears would be mostly hardy plank on these homes. We're not proposing any vinyl on any of these homes. These are higher end homes, and I think the brick in nature fits with the existing community that surrounds this property. So
Can I jump in real quick?
sure.
Yep, go ahead.
No, I've been following the chat, and I appreciate everyone's comments, and I want to share a few things. First of all, we've been talking about this project for probably about a year now. And we've had 2 or 3 single member district meetings about this project. While I do appreciate all of the efforts you all have made to listen to the community, address some of their concerns. A couple of things I want to make sure people are aware of is that, at one of the meetings, we talked about the fact that based on the zoning, we could have ended up with a much higher density development. So I think we should be relatively fortunate that we're only ending up with 80 townhouses. Not that I particularly like or want 80 townhouses, but it is better than the alternative that if some other developer came in there, what they could build based on the zoning. That's first of all. Second of all, I know that at some point in time, someone mentioned that 80 townhouses is too much. I do realize it's a lot of townhouses. And, again, while I'm not a big fan of having 80 townhouses and all the traffic and everything else that brings with us, we are not in a position at this point to have that negotiated, the number of townhouses. As was discussed at a previous meeting, they are doing almost the bare minimum they need in terms of the cost of the project, because the cost of the townhouse project is directly impacting, it's the revenue, and Layla, correct me if I'm wrong if I say this wrong, but it's the revenue stream for the project for the school that the school needs to build. And there's pretty much no wiggle room. The fact that they were able to knock off one townhouse actually amazed me. So there's not a lot of that. I do want to say that, when we met the last time, and we talked about the back side of the property, which borders Providence, and being a shared space. And as you both know, I've written a couple letters to you and to Providence to say we really wanted you to work together. It was my hope that Providence would have been farther along in their planning to move forward with their development at this point. I know you all were hoping for that as well, because there is such a huge opportunity here to have this huge amount of land, and the community has been asking for a dog park. So I'm happy that you guys are putting in something for the dogs. The community has been asking for that for a long time. And so we're very happy that that's coming. I know that when Providence develops their property, they are going to provide us a little bit more green space in terms of a soccer field or something like that. We were hoping that that was going to be combined. I will say in this current layout, while you are providing community space, I am very concerned about it the way it's laid out, because it's almost all enclosed. And so I don't feel as though while it's certainly available to anybody, I'm not sure it's going to appear as though it's open for anybody in the community, right? And so I am concerned about that. I would have much rather that been on that backside at the bottom of the drawing and connected to the other development, to have a much bigger space. So that's a bit concerning for me. The other thing I want to mention to people is that Will mentioned about the seismic monitors. So they're going to do it almost identically, I'm assuming, to the way EYA did it. Is that they come in, do a baseline reading of the houses to determine where things are at now, an assessment, and then as the project moves forward, if there are complaints about shaking, they bring in, a seismic monitor and address any potential issues and deal with that. Will, am I saying that correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. So, so the goal would be, to work with each of the residents that lives right there on Buchanan and nearby to make sure that, where things are currently with their homes in terms of structure, and then determine if they do have any shaking or cracking, then that helps them determine if that did come from the project. And that's critical to determine because a lot of people could say, oh, I have these cracks in my house. And if those cracks were there before and we don't know that they were there before, right, then, how do we know where they came from? So it is critically important to make sure that the cracks that they do see are based on the seismic activity from the construction site and putting in the footings and all of that. you know, as I said, I want to vote on these projects separately. And I've talked to members of the community, and I don't think anybody has any single objection to the school. I think everybody's all in favor of the school, of making sure that the school is what we need, and moving that forward. I realize that the projects are dependent on each other, but I think there are a lot of concerns to the housing development. So I want to make sure that those concerns are heard. And if you're reading the comments in the chat, there are still a lot of concerns about the housing. There is still a concern about the density of the housing. We can certainly, voice those concerns to the Board of Zoning at the hearing. But I want to make sure that the plan really fits within the community.
Yeah,
Yeah,
if I
I
can weigh
understand.
it up, sorry, go ahead, Will.
Good. No, go ahead, Lana.
If I can just weigh in, I mean, clearly, Commissioner Lucio, when the ANC reviews and votes on the project, they're tasked to review and vote based on the standard of review, right? The special exception criteria. And again, as a matter of right, this project, and this, we've talked about it, as a matter of right, the property can be developed with 300 apartment units. So that being the case, when you look at under the special exception criteria, what we're proposing is significantly less impactful on the immediate neighborhood, right? There's less noise, there's less traffic, less density. When you evaluate the project under the special exception criteria. So caution is not the right word, but as the ANC, you're tasked to evaluate, and your comment should be based on the legal standard of review.
Yeah.
As it relates to the park, the park will be a condition of the approval in the BZA order. And so it will be on public record that the park is open to the community. That it will be on record, and so that wouldn't be an issue as to whether or not it serves as private space. Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I clearly understand. I see some of the comments and appreciate the comments. I think what is a little unique about this is that, from a development standpoint, it's not often that you see, landowners, in this case, Catholic Charities, that to have someone so concerned about making sure that they fit within the fabric of the community and that they are providing for a density that is much less than what is allowed is a fairly unique situation. And I think it just speaks to the fact that Catholic Charity's been here a long time. They feel strongly about that, being neighbors in this community. So we don't usually run into this too often, where we have situations that we have an underlying landowner not pushing us to get higher density and higher income. They obviously need funds to build this school. I will say what's unique about this is the cost of the construction of the new school will exceed the amount that we're going to be able to pay for just these homes. And they're still not pushing us in terms of getting more density. So I just, it is a bit unique in terms of what we come across as developers. And I hope, and I hope that will be taken into account. And I know it is important to both our, as the developer on the residential, but I know how important it is for Catholic Charities to get your support in this. And I hope you'll give that every consideration, because I think right here you're dealing with someone who is attempting to be a really good member of the community. And while I understand that, some folks may not like 80, it's so dramatically less than what is allowed by a by right use that I hope that you will give that some consideration in your deliberations. So thank you
I
so much.
appreciate that. And I want to, Will, you've been on the call for since early on. So you heard the earlier discussion about the playground.
Yes.
And so I wanna sort of raise that similarly here. You know, one thing I forgot to mention, I know they mentioned about the RPP parking. So that is one of the things we asked for and they're working on. So the residents who live on Buchanan will have right to RPP parking. And the residents from the homeowners association will not have access to RPP parking. So they will not be able to park on Buchanan and take spaces away from the residents who live on Buchanan. I want to make sure that is very clear. And then I want to, in terms of the green space, as this transitions over after it's completely finished, this will be an HOA. So can you help explain to the residents about the HOA in terms of the green space, who's responsible for it? You know, I think one of the overarching concerns is, you know, what happens if the HOA is, you know, not happy with how residents are taking care of it? You know, who's responsible for cleaning up after the dogs and you know, and all those types of things and maintaining the playground equipment and things like that.
Well, as developers, we always, we're responsible for the initial construction and installation of all playground material, dog park, everything. We will be responsible financially and will implement that. We also, when we set up HOAs, we make sure that we sufficiently fund the reserves for the maintenance of the common area infrastructure. This will be common area infrastructure, and it will be, the maintenance of it will be paid every month through the HOA dues of the homes within the community. And these homes are not, these homes are relatively expensive homes. We envision that these homes are in the $800,000 plus range, and homeowners at that level are going to, generally they're paying their HOA dues, and the common areas are critical for them maintaining their property values and the use of it. So that's how the landscaping and all the other, the dog stations. I should mention, I also forgot to say that we are going to have 2 bike stations in this area as well. So, but all of those things would be maintained through the homeowners association dues.
And Will, I want to add, because there are comments in the chat suggesting that people in the HOA, won't want to share the green space. But it should be noted that the streets on either end are private streets that will be paid for and maintained by the HOA, but they are publicly accessible, right?
Everything's publicly accessible.
And they're required by DDOT. And so it's really no different than the green space. The HOA is responsible for them, but they are publicly accessible, and they're going to be recorded on the land records as being publicly accessible. So it's not an unusual concept in this.
But Lila, it's different, right, than the way the EYA development is laid out, where the playground is not in the middle of the townhouses. It opens up on 2 borders to the public. And I think initially when we talked, the goal is that the open green space for the community be more accessible. And the way the plan is right now, I would agree with most of the concerns that are coming in about that is that, it does not appear as accessible, right? And being surrounded by, private streets, even though they are open to the public, right? And, and if the homeowners are maintaining that through their HOA dues, and residents come in, and if for some reason some damage happens to that, what's to stop them from saying, we don't want you to use this anymore? So, I think that these are legitimate concerns.
They can't say that they can't use it anymore, because it'll be a covenant within the land records that it is open to the general public. They can't, the HOA will not have the opportunity to make those modifications. It will be a covenant in the land records that it is open to the general public.
Okay.
I mean, and we have our civil engineer on the line. The playground to the rear, or to the south, doesn't work to the south because of topography issues. Including topography on the Providence site. So
Because
because
the grade goes up.
Yeah, it's a significant grade change. And
Yeah.
Commissioner, as you know, we've made every attempt to coordinate, but the fact of the matter is it's tough to coordinate when there's, Providence is not at that point yet. It's just a difficult scenario.
Well, yes, I don't disagree with you, although I do know from my own conversations, because I have reached out and spoken with Providence, that they are more than willing to work. They're more than willing to set aside a portion of land adjacent to your property to be jointly used. So, I still am not clear on why something like that can't happen, even though knowing that their project is a little farther behind than yours is. But to be honest, their project may coincide with the development of your townhouses, or they actually may start before you do your townhouses, given the fact that, the school is going to be the first part of the project, right? So you
Yeah.
guys may be butting up against each other. And
I'm not even going to conjecture on that time frame.
No,
but clearly
I understand that, Will, but
we're a long ways away. Is it your thought? And I'm going to ask the question here. Is it your thought that you'd like to see less green space? I do believe the project needs green space in the middle. Is it your thought it needs less green space in the middle and more and an additional green space on the side of Providence? Is that your thought, Commissioner?
well, that's what you had planned the first time we had talked about it.
Yeah, and that was not well received by Office of Planning, quite frankly. They wanted to see a consolidated space. But certainly, listen, we're open to all suggestions and comments. Your support is important to us. Your input's important to us. I think that the issue is we always can make modifications to plans. The issue is that I don't think there can be a modification to the density discussion, because if there's not sufficient density, then the school project can't go forward. And I do want to be clear on that.
Yeah,
Right.
and I think, I have to reiterate what Will's saying. We need the townhouse development, and even with it, we have a significant philanthropic need in order to fund the building of the new school. We could have taken the other approach of going for multifamily and not needing the philanthropic raise, but felt that it was the wrong thing for the community.
Right. I
And
understand that.
so, they are tied together. We can't do the school without maximizing to the maximum extent possible the sale for the townhouses.
Yep, I understand that. Will, can you go into more detail about what the specific objection from the Office of Planning was on the location of the green space when you had it originally in the back?
It wasn't, yeah, it was more like they did not want to see a design. Well, first and foremost, they wanted the two streets to go have interconnectivity. And then secondly, they wanted consolidated green space, and they wanted all product to be rear loaded. They did not want any front loaded townhomes.
So
Now,
Commissioner Lucio, if you had the green space in the rear, you would just have less green space, like active green space. You'd have, some in the middle and then some on the south side, but it wouldn't be a large green space like you have now.
No, I understand that. So let me ask you this. Are you saying that it is possible to adjust the plans to reduce the green space that's in the middle, provide a strip of green space in the back that would adjoin together with Providence, assuming we can make that work with them, that they agree to that, that could be a larger space for some of the things like, a soccer field and the other things we've discussed?
we're certainly open to any suggestions you have. We're not going to tell you we can't do that. I think the tough part is if there's no promises from Providence, but certainly we're willing to take a look at that, Commissioner.
Yeah.
I think the bigger issue is that, we come before you tonight, hopefully with a reasonable application and understanding that the density issue is important to us. It's critical in terms of being able to collaborate on these, but we're happy to go back and look at that, Commissioner. If you feel as though that would be better received by the community, we'd be happy to show you a layout such as that.
Lila, can you put up the diagram with the houses and the layout again? So I know I've done a lot of talking, other people have done talking. There's been some comments in the chat. Are there other people in the community that would like to comment on it?
I have a question.
Yeah, Janice, Miss Hale, go ahead.
Concerning the traffic, will you still be able to go in the entrance and exit the entrance that's there now? Or will there be a new entrance, an exit?
There will be two new points of connection. So the points of ingress and egress, as you know them now, will go away. There'll be 2 points of ingress and egress for the townhouse community, and then another means of ingress for the roundabout pool. This street will serve both the townhouse community and the school development. This road. I'll pull up a plan that shows both school.
So
and-
Lila, the existing curb cut on the, there is an existing curb cut on the one side of the property that we will be utilizing. There is one existing curb cut.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Let me find,
So Lila, I just want to share with everybody that the top of the screen is Buchanan Street. The big white space if you're facing the screen to your right is where the school would be. And then there's the 2 streets in the middle. So yeah, that's a little bit better.
oh wait, hold on. Is this, I'm gonna share my screen with, sorry. I have the, okay.
So Lila, one of the questions in the chat is, I don't know if this is possible or not, but we had talked about putting the green space in the back so that it borders Providence, and so we can make that a larger green space. But one of the questions is could it be put in the front closer to Buchanan and set back the houses?
I can't answer that. I don't know. Well, that is even be, I think from an urban planning standpoint, you want the street that the houses running. You can't.
Yeah, and to some extent that defeats our bigger purpose of having a larger green space.
I mean, I think, Commissioner, we could go back and look at, splitting, and you could look at splitting the green space and because I think that from an urban planning standpoint, you do want some green space in the middle. You really do for a good urban plan, but that doesn't mean that you can't have it at the rear as well. It's just you're dimensionally, you do want some green space in that middle for us. I think Office of Planning would say, that would be proper planning. But that doesn't mean we can't go back and look at splitting it.
And I'm sorry, Will, just remind me, I don't know, is this curb cut gonna remain or is it this one? I don't.
No, the one further to the left, there's that one there is an existing curb cut.
Okay, okay.
Commissioner, do you feel as though at this time your level of comfort is more, or discomfort is more on the is more on the layout as opposed to the proposed density?
So I think listening to the residents, there are concerns of both. But knowing that we have more availability to change the layout in terms of where the green space is, and that's something we can work with. I'd really like to see if we could go back to something we had originally planned and see if we can get at least, I'm pretty confident we can get a verbal commitment from the Providence group. And Will, I think you know that as well, that we can
I
get
would like
something.
to, yeah, I think you have a better chance than we do. How's that?
Okay. You know, yeah, I mean, I'd like to, yeah, I worry that we're not going to have as much green space as we could have doing it this way. And, you know, and I worry that the way the layout is now, while absolutely by right, it's open to the public, I get that. You know, I just don't know how clear that is from the layout.
Understood. And I just, when we look at the rear, just also understand there is some significant topography changes when you walk that property. So the idea that you're going to get one flat area back there from a green space is not likely. Just there would be some significant retaining walls around that, regardless of what Providence does. There's a lot of topography. It doesn't mean it can't be green space, but I think the idea of like open fields, the topography doesn't work well back there. Now, it would take a lot of work to modify it otherwise. So, okay.
So Commissioner, we can come back at your next meeting.
Yeah, I can schedule a special meeting to talk just about this, because obviously, you know, I want to make sure we're meeting your time frame. So yeah, if we can do that, you know, and then we can try and address some of these various concerns. You know, I think, you know, I do appreciate the fact that you all are also willing to, you know, address, you know, issues in terms of structural integrity of, you know, the current houses that are there and look at that. I think that's important. You know, and I do appreciate you all being willing to work with us on the RPP and then the tax relief for residents. I think those are all helpful to the community. You know, obviously we want to make sure that what goes in this fits into our community. And as I said, we're very much in favor of the school. Would you like us to vote on the school tonight, or would you like us just to wait until you come back and do both at the same time?
I think we prefer that we come back and do both at the same time.
Okay. 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 Are there any other questions from residents? Okay, if you can do that, and then Layla, do you see Keely's question at the very bottom of the chat?
Yeah, needs to be an easement on Buchanan, which should be at least 10 yards of green space from the street. I think the setback, and I'll make sure that there'll be a setback. I'm sorry, I don't know it off the top of my head.
We'll certainly take a look at that.
Yeah,
Clearly
we'll
understand
look
that.
at it. Yeah.
There is a 15-foot building restriction line from the property line.
Okay, thank you, Brian.
Great. Okay. All right. Okay. If there are no other questions, we will move on. It's already 9:20, and I know people are probably getting weary, but we got a couple more things to do. So thank you all very much. Lily and Will, I know you know how to reach me. So
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Have
you.
a
We'll
good
be in
night.
touch soon.
Take care now.
Bye. Okay. Thank you everyone for your patience. I'll give this a minute here. I just give me a second. I want to make sure something. Okay. Lila and Will are off the call, so we can talk candidly a little bit more since they're off the call. I want to share with you all that this, you know, we've talked about this now at 3 separate meetings. You know, while, you know, 80 townhomes is not ideal in any way, shape, or form, and I do realize we've got the Mundo Verde project and the EYA project and the Providence project coming. You know, unfortunately, these are going to happen. They are private property. We can't stop them from happening, but what we can do is work with them to make sure that they fit what we need and what we want. You know, and as much as I'd love to cut back the number of 80, I don't know that we're going to be able to do that. In answer to your question, Steve, about the Providence project, I have met with them multiple times. They are being very, very, very tight-lipped about it. Very tight-lipped about it. They won't say anything to anyone. I even had them meet. I met with them and the incoming council member, Zachary Parker. We met with them a few weeks ago. They are being extremely tight-lipped. So I'm trying to put pressure on them as much as I can to get them to open up. What I do know is that they have determined who's going to develop the project, and that developer will be working with us to make sure that you know, that we are involved in the process going forward. You know, there's a lot going on with this. And I know, you know, it's always a lot. And you know, we're not going to ever make everybody happy. So we have to do our best to do what we can to make sure that at least some of the needs of the community are met. And in my opinion, keeping as much of that green space as possible is critical. So I'm going to do everything I can to keep as much of that green space and make it something that's beneficial for the community. That is critically important to me. So I just wanted to touch base on that. If people want to reach out to me privately and talk to me, I'm happy to do that. But I will keep you posted as things move forward with that. We've got a couple other things I wanted to talk about really quickly. Are there residents from Allison Street on the call? I know Lorenz is on the call. Are there other residents from Allison Street on the call?
Yes.
Yep.
I'm on the call. This is
Oh, that's right.
Marsha.
Marcia's on the call. Okay.
Right.
Marcia, Lorenz, who else? Cindy.
Tanique,
but-
I'm here as
Tanique,
well.
Cindy, it's actually the block after yours that I'm working with. We need to come to a conclusion about RPP parking on Allison Street. All of the surrounding streets now have RPP parking. And there were 3 or 4 residents who reached out to me saying that they did not want RPP parking. A petition was never sent in for Allison Street, unfortunately, because the resident who was in charge of that petition.
Let's be specific about the fact that you're talking about the 1300 block of Allison Street.
Correct, the 1300 block of Allison Street, between Sergeant Road and South Dakota. The resident who was in charge of distributing that petition, I did not know, moved out of the neighborhood. So it never got distributed. And it never got submitted to DDOT. But my concern is that, you know, while there are a couple residents who have been very vocal that they don't want it, there have also been residents who've come to me who've said they do want it. And one of the concerns is that if it's the only block that doesn't have it, then other residents around the neighborhood may try and avoid paying the additional fee for a second or third car by parking their second or third car on Allison Street where there's no RPP parking.
Right.
So what we need to do is have a meeting with the residents of Allison Street. And I need your help, Tanique, Marcia, Lorenz, to get everybody on your block and to find a date that we can all meet to talk about this.
Well, the thing about the residential parking, I mean, as it is now, and my concern personally is the fact that from 6:30 on a Friday, because the residential permit, weekday ends at 8:30 on any given weekday. And so you can park from 8:30 until the next morning, 9:30, whatever. But then from Friday, from 6:30 until 9:30 on Monday, they can park there all day because it's only restricted Monday through Friday.
Right. So Lorenz, so that's one of the things that I've talked to DDOT about this. They start off with that. They determine if there needs to be more, then we can request that they extend it. If you've ever tried to park on Capitol Hill, that's 24 hours RPP parking.
No, it's
So,
not. No, no, I work at Eastern Market, and they have the same pretty much situation. I've worked there years. Now, if I lived in Eastern Market, of course, they have a lot of private driveways, which, you know, precludes people to park in front of them. So that's part of the scenario. But on 8th Street, 9th Street, all the number streets, not the letter streets, you have pretty much all public space parking, and it's only restricted to Monday through Fridays.
But that's just a small part of Capitol Hill.
Yeah, I agree. But then when you say Capitol Hill, you know, you can't just.
Okay, but the point is, Lorenz, is that the way DDOT does it is they assign it the way it is now until they realize that it needs to be extended. And
Well,
so
let me just say this. I've worked in other parts of the city, and I've seen exclusive residential parking only without any ramp up period with what you're talking about, parking. So for instance, in the Plains View or in the 700 block of Earth, you have residential parking only. They never had the ramp up that you're suggesting that this residential park that is being proposed now take place.
Lorenz,
There's no consistency throughout the city that way. I'm talking about, if you're going to talk about a policy, I'm pissed off with DDOT and the whole night, because there seems to be double standards in terms of how this is being applied.
Okay, Lorenz, but what I want to do now is it's 9:30 and everybody wants to get off the call, and we've got a couple of things to discuss.
Well, don't blame me. You can blame Mundo Verde. I mean, all these other developers get their time, and
but Lorenz, but give me a minute. This discussion is relevant to the residents on that block. And right now we only have 3 residents from that block. So I want to give the residents from that block plenty of time to discuss this at a meeting just for them.
Well, okay? Who's the other resident? I know Marcia, but who's the other resident?
Tanique.
Oh,
Hey,
okay. Hey, how you doing?
So what I'd like to do is find a time where we can meet with just the residents of Allison Street to talk about this, and we can go through all of those issues and devote, an hour or 2 hours just to talking about that. So Marcia, Tanique, and Lorenz, I will reach out to you and a couple of the other residents I know to see if we can find a time that works. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. Okay. All right. So the next thing, and I think maybe the last thing. Yeah, the last thing on the list is I know I see Miss Hale, I see Miss Keeley. Deidre, are you still on the call?
Yes.
Okay. So I see, and I know there was Miss Skurlock was on the call. I don't see her on the call anymore. So I see 3 residents. Are there any other residents from the University Park, Newtown area?
Hey, Emily, Wise and Pfizer here. We're also in that area on 4700 block of Buchanan.
Okay. So again, in the interest of time, I
Ms.
would like
Beverly
to.
is here and Sherlock is on the line.
Oh, she is. Okay, great.
Yes.
Thank you. So I want to just give everybody an update. I've been going back and forth with DDOT. We've got residents in the neighborhood who want sidewalks. We've got residents who want speed humps. Initially, the residents were told that they could not have speed humps without sidewalks. I've been told that that's not necessarily the case. Some of it depends on gutters and a couple other things. And I have confirmed what DDOT has asked me to confirm with them, that there are curbs and there are gutters along the street. So they are trying to determine if it's okay to put speed humps in there. if they can. But as a community, I need again to schedule a meeting with as many of the residents from that neighborhood as possible to talk about this issue, because there are that the green space in front of those houses is not all private property, right? There's a portion of it that is public land. And so by right, the city can decide to put sidewalks along those properties. I realize that there are residents in that area that don't want sidewalks, and there are residents that do want sidewalks. So what I would like to do is we need to do as many people as possible from that community come together to a meeting to vote on the sidewalks and the speed humps. And hopefully by then I will have more information from DDOT as to whether or not we can in fact put speed humps in there, even if we don't have sidewalks. So for the residents that are on here now, Deidre, Janice, Ms. Skurlock, is it Saeed? Is that how you pronounce your last name?
Yeah, or you just call me Wise. That's my first name. Just
Okay,
like-
Wise. And there was one other person on the call. Oh, and Miss Keeley. Did I get everybody? I really need all of your support to get to share this information with your neighbors. And then see if we can find a date that works to have a meeting to discuss this issue. You all have any questions about that?
Emily, this is Fiza. I think I've emailed you about this issue before. My question is, and I should know the answer to this, but does your ANC cover all of this area?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So you would want us to like from the whole, all this like development, you would want everyone to.
As many people as possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions about that?
I guess just real quick, any idea as to like when we would try to have this conversation with the community members?
As soon as we can schedule a meeting that works in all of our schedules.
Okay.
I will say that Thursday nights are the least disruptive to my schedule. Other nights are Wednesday nights, I have other meetings, and Monday and Tuesday, I'm busily shuffling off my son to activities. So Thursday nights tend to be most open. So if we can find a date, let me just look at my schedule real quick and see, maybe I can propose dates. Let me tell both the residents of Allison Street and the residents of University Park in Newtown. Let me tell you a couple Thursday dates that I could make work, and if all of you could go to your neighbors and see what works best. I could no. I could do October 6th. I could do October 13th. I could do October 20th. So if we want to look at those first 3 weeks in October and each of you pick one of those dates, that would work.
Emily, I just had another quick question. So do you know how many feet it take of green space from the front of people's yards would be taken up for a sidewalk?
I think, let me see if I can look in my emails if they address that.
It would be the length of our apron in front of our driveways.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
Let me just see if he said exactly. Hold on.
And I guess while you're looking through your emails, another question I had was with regard to speed bumps, would it be all down 7th and 6th, or were they thinking about putting them on Allison, Webster, and
So they would do a traffic feasibility study.
okay,
And my guess is it would not be down the side streets. My guess is it would just be
Right,
down.
okay. Six
Yeah.
and.
Yeah.
Six
Yeah.
and
that makes
seven.
sense.
Yeah.
Barnum is a circle, so they probably wouldn't. If they did, it probably would be halfway around.
Let me
Yeah,
just see.
This is Keely.
Hi, Keely.
I was wondering if it was possible for them to put the speed humps right at the curve of Barnum Place, because I can actually send you video of where a car came around that corner and ran into our car that was parked on Barnum Place and then landed on my neighbor's front yard.
Keely,
So
can
it
I make a
seems
better
like-
suggestion to you?
What?
I would submit that video to the 311 website and make a request for speed humps in that area. That way they have it on record. And as we move forward to request this, they will look up any complaints and requests for that in their system.
Will do.
Okay, so if anybody else sees anything like that, please submit it to 311. You can then send me the 311 confirmation. You can screenshot it or forward it to me. And then that way I also have it to follow up with DDOT. I couldn't find the email right away where he said that, but I think what Deidre said is correct. So
About the stop sign, did he respond to the stop sign being on one part of 7th and Varnum and not on 6th and Varnum?
he did not respond to that.
Because why would you put the stop sign on one end of the street and not on the other end? So one end is 4-way stop sign and the other end is 2.
Right.
And to be honest, sidewalks is not gonna stop speeding. And if that's the issue here.
No, sidewalks aren't for stopping speeding. The sidewalks is the request for sidewalks from the people who I've talked to is they want a safe place to walk with their children, so they're not walking in the streets where there are cars that are speeding.
Well, my question to that is, how long have these residents been here? And it's been over 3 generations of families that have raised children here in this neighborhood where it didn't have sidewalks. And my thing with that is that you purposely bought your home knowing that this neighborhood didn't have sidewalks.
Well,
Because the other solution would be to cut off the aprons of our driveways, or if they go from where our driveways exist now and out to the street. So it would turn our street that's 2-way to 1-way, which would create a whole nother issue as far as traffic going up and down up and down the streets, because now you will only be allowing one car to come down.
Well, there's no guarantee that that's going to happen, but ways I want to give you a chance to
It's
respond.
only 2 options. It's either cut the driveways off or expand out to the street. That's the only way you're gonna get sidewalks.
Well, I want to give Waze a chance to respond, but I don't want to dwell too long on this again for the same reason as Allison Street, because I think we're going to schedule another time to meet, but go ahead and respond to that real quick.
Yeah, no, thank you, Emily. I was just gonna say, I'm one of those residents who recently moved in. I have a newborn, well, not newborn anymore. She's 15 months old. And I totally understand what you're saying. Sidewalks won't stop speeding. Folks will still speed even with sidewalks there. That happens everywhere in the district. But what I will say is when we did come in and looked at the neighborhood and wanted to move in and eventually bought the home, we didn't sit around looking at the cars to see at what speeds they were driving, how folks in the neighborhood were acting when other folks were on the street and whatnot. That was something we learned while living here. And I totally respect and understand that a lot of folks have already lived here for 3, 2, 1 generation, and have been perfectly fine. But I will just say cars these days are a lot different and folks are speeding. That's something that we can't ignore. So to the extent we can increase safety of not only just families with kids, but just anyone living in this neighborhood, I think we should look into those opportunities whether it is just sidewalks, whether it is just speed bumps, or whether it's a combination of both. Thanks, Emily.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. So if you all can help me out, because I don't have all of your neighbors on my email address list and I can't reach all of them. If you all can be my points of contact, reach out to your neighbors, give them those 3 dates. See if we can find a date that works for everybody. I can set up an email, at least amongst those of us who are on the call based on these two issues. And try and at least get a conversation going with us so that we can find a date, and then go from there. Does that work for everybody? Okay. All right, folks, it is 9:42. I don't know about you, but it's late and I am getting pretty weary. So, are there any other major concerns that we absolutely have to discuss tonight? Okay. Well, I do appreciate you all being here. I appreciate those of you who have hung on this long. I know that we've talked about a lot tonight. There's a lot going on in our community, and I truly do appreciate you all being here tonight. So thank you all very much. You all know how to reach me if you need to. Have a good
Thank you,
day.
Emily.
Thank you,
Thank
Emily.
you.
Thank you. Have a good night.